you guys want to start opening these bottles?
Yes.
There's a wine opener here, so if you want to start opening that one there,
Oh, I
Rory.
see. I'll have to wait to open mine.
Yeah,
then.
we'll get
I have an opener in the other room, but I'm not going to get
Not
it.
sure. Wait for it.
It's fine. There's no rush on these ones.
So yeah, in honor of today's episode, we have 3 bottles from Shout Out Bread and Butter, Napa Valley. 3 red wines here.
If I can shout them out, they'll send you some more for free.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
We're hoping that they'll sponsor us.
If they want to sponsor the pod, feel free.
Well, let's
Like,
wait till we
I'm not
taste it, man.
adverse.
Wait till we taste it, maybe shout.
Good, yeah, good.
Might be
not want them.
amazing.
Yeah, could be shite.
So, as I understand it, this is like the most reasonably priced wine that you could get that's similar to what they're drinking in
I thought you
Sideways.
corked that.
Pop is shite.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, these were the closest I could get online without spending well beyond my means.
And corked refers to the cork reacting with the wine, not the breaking. If the cork breaks, you're all well and good.
Aye,
But
yeah.
it's to react with the wine before the fact.
Yeah. So, just in reference to the film we're about to do, I was strongly reminded, Roy, of our trip to Gettysburg and the night we had in the Irish pub.
Oh, yes.
The Gary Owen Irish pub.
Gary Owen is a big rugby club with Gary Owen.
Yeah.
And
That
it's-
invented the up and under, right?
Absolutely, Tom.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So yeah, we were in there the first night we got there.
So Irish.
Yeah, we were in the first time we got there. We're in there. We're sitting at the bar. We were gonna get some food, having a couple of pints, and there was this old couple sitting beside us. You were sat beside the woman, and the other guy who was this like Joe Biden motherfucker. He was like sat around like the corner, so I could sort of see him diagonally. And but actually, before we get into them, we'll talk about some of the things about the pub itself. One thing I could not abide was on the menu. The shepherd's pie contained beef.
Yeah.
I thought shepherd's pie did have beef in it.
cottage pie.
What does a shepherd look after?
I don't fucking like. I don't
Sheep.
I don't eat shepherd's pie. I
Shepherd.
assumed it
the
always.
shepherd of sheep.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But
Cottage
I
pie
always
is beef.
assumed it had beef in it.
No, beef is cottage pie.
Right. Okay.
And then-
Well, I'm fucking sorry.
I was revolted by this.
Yeah,
obviously.
I'm not a fan of that myself.
And then some funny music in there.
Oh, we were getting a bit of what do you call that? What do you call them?
Literal black come out, you black and
Yeah, what do you
tans,
call
blaring.
that awful band that's been on their farewell
Oh, it
tour
was,
for about
the
50
Wolf-
years.
Wolf Tones.
I'm going to see the Wolf Tones in October.
Oh yeah.
You could bring my wife. She forever. Thank you.
Zoe was like, "I've got a spare ticket if you want to come." And I was like, "I would absolutely come." I'm intrigued to see what it'd be like.
Oh, aye.
I'm going as like it's my like counterpoint to going to Benidorm. It's like an anthropological study. I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
to
go with
see.
your journalistic
I absolutely
hat on.
am. Yeah.
So that's sort of set the scene, right? So the old woman beside Rory, she's talking to you, and she was convinced we were a gay couple.
Yeah, she flat out accused us of being so.
Yet she couldn't get it out of her head, and we were like, no, he's getting married. Like, this is like a stag thing we're doing. You know? And she wouldn't accept it. And the reason she
told her.
wouldn't.
I hate people like that whenever you like tell them, the truth, and they're like, no, that can't be right.
But the reason she wasn't accepting it is because something had happened.
Some sort of homophobic attack had happened in recent days.
There had been a gay bashing
And she
in
wanted
that
to,
state.
and she wanted to make it very clear to us that she was okay with us.
Yeah. So she was like,
And I was like, no, I am not gay.
America, some parts of America are so backward. Like, that's crazy.
So like
you know what I mean?
she just had that in her head. So she thought we're so trying to like hide this because we're afraid of getting gay bashed in Gettysburg
Oh my
town.
God.
And he's sitting there going, I'm not. And I'm just sitting there smashing pints and goujons. And then this fucking Joe Biden motherfucker starts chirping up from across the bar. He's like, a friend of mine, he came from Ireland. He sat right there in that seat you're sitting in right there.
Oh my God.
And he told me this.
The Irish are like preternaturally disposed to sit in that seat.
He told me that was the best pint of Guinness he ever had. The usual bullshit. These guys. And like
Yeah, he was humoring you because he was afraid he was going to be strung up.
Yeah, and I think I got to the point I was done humoring Americans. I just said it's shite.
Pints really weren't great.
They were shite in there. I have had good pints in New York. I had some Whoppers. So as the night went on, then there's this fucking crowd, there's this gathering around us. Remember the other group of people?
Oh yeah, they were like buying us drinks and buying us our dinner and all, weren't they?
I'm sure we didn't think they were. whatever. And then, you know, it's like you're Irish in a white middle class town. Everyone wants a piece of you, grabbing you, like trying to get your attention.
Yeah, everyone thinks they have Irish ancestry.
Yeah. And then I go to pay the bill.
Everyone wants to have Irish ancestry.
Yeah, I go down the bar to pay the bill, and as soon as I said, "Can I pay the bill?" it was like, "Rabble!" You saw 100 credit cards going, like, "Rabble!" Everyone had, "Oh, I'm paying it." I was just like, "Oh no, it's all right. No, please do, because it's been a long trip."
I had a really funny one in New Hampshire whenever I was there. I was literally like 14 years old.
New Hampshire, live free or die.
Yeah. But like, it shows you how like Tom Brady has been like such a huge American football. Like, he's been huge in American football for so long.
I didn't even think
that
about
even
that.
back then they were like
6 Super Bowls.
he was literally like,
Will you stop eating bread? Sorry.
I think he was like 26 or something at this point. And I bumped into someone. I was like chatting to an American, and I used to. This was always my story of like how stupid Americans were when I was younger, because I was chatting to someone in New Hampshire, and I was like, "Oh yeah, my name is Tom Brady," with an Irish accent, like obviously not. And they were like, "Oh my god, are you literally Tom Brady?" And I was like, "No, I'm not literally Tom Brady. I'm like very clearly an Irish 14-year-old." Like, Jesus Christ.
And like an American 14-year-old looks about 35. Yeah, you get that. It's like you get the American Pie films. They do look that old.
No, I was like,
they're all like 30.
yeah, I was like ultra twinked out. Like, it was very obvious I was not the like 6 foot jacked American football player.
That wee woman sitting beside us as well said towards the start of the conversation, we said a really, really, really funny one to us. She goes, because Gettysburg, as you drive into it, it's going to be roundabout, and it's like the only roundabout we came across anywhere we went in America. And she goes,
I didn't think there was any roundabouts in America.
And she goes, what did you think of the traffic circle? And it was baffling to them.
I love how that's like a point of
It was
conversation.
a hot topic.
It sounds like it caused some problems.
No.
Wide,
I remember this. No, I remember this. They didn't get roundabouts in Donegal until I was about 15. And then they had them in Letterkenny, which is like the capital of Donegal. And it was like a huge, like, hot topic of conversation. People were freaking out about it when they first
filled with roundabouts.
Now it is. It didn't used to be. When we were going there when I was a kid, there was no roundabouts. And now there's
The whole
roundabouts.
thing's a roundabout,
They've gone roundabout mad.
It's like, you want a roundabout? I'll give you a fucking
Yeah.
Just to
But they hated them at first. They didn't know what to do with them.
Just to be a bit pernickety, I'd say that Donegal Town's probably the.
No, you're right. No, but Letterkenny's
big.
the biggest city in Donegal. Excuse me.
Yeah, but it seemed like that traffic circle had really caused them some problems. It wasn't easy.
It was great wailing and gnashing of teeth when it was first installed.
It's another one that made me think of The Simpsons, and when they go to London and they enter the roundabout and they just can't get out of it.
Anyway, welcome back.
We must move on to the film.
Yeah, welcome back, Curls and Cornheads, to the Popcorn Head podcast with your host, Gavin Welton, and your co-hosts, Mr. Rory Murr and Mr. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Today, we are looking at Alexander Payne's Sideways. It was released in 2004. The film takes us on a journey into the heart of wine country in California. It's a journey taken by two middle-aged men, Miles and Jack, on a week-long stag do or bachelor party, whatever you want to call it, road trip around Santa Barbara's vineyards.
Bucks night, I think I call it in Australia. Bucks night.
Oh, aye.
You're fucking hungover, you know you are.
How lucky she is, marrying no less than Derek Summersby.
Not now.
I just don't generally like the way they manipulate Chardonnay in California.
I'm going fucking nuts up here, man. You know what? That's gonna be my best man gift to you this week. I'm gonna get you laid.
That's what you do with every one of them.
When do we drink?
You're an infant, Jack. Just a pasture animal waiting for the abattoir.
You can choose to be less hostile.
She has a Richebour? Holy mackerel.
What rehearsal dinner?
You're getting married on Saturday!
Sir, this is a winery, not a bar. Your novel is coming out in the fall.
Oh, really? How exciting. What's it called?
Sideways, it's a film about complex human relationships and failures. Miles, who is let's be honest, an alcoholic masked as this wine aficionado. He's a middle school English teacher. He's a failed writer. He's just sort of a failed
He's an
marriage.
aspiring writer.
Yeah. While Jack, his friend, is this washed up soap opera actor.
Gorilla hunter.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Washed up soap opera actor who does the voiceover for like terms and conditions on the sort of adverts. He's saying like teleshopping, terms and conditions may apply.
No, he does like radio ads, but that's what they're all like.
Yeah, all that APR stuff.
Yeah.
Consult your doctor before using this product. Side effects may include oily discharge.
While on this trip, they meet Maya and Stephanie, and the trip becomes much more complicated and sort of starts to spiral out of control, revealing how vulnerable the characters are, what they really want out of life, and what they fear about life. So
They're terrified of getting what they want.
yeah, essentially. So the story of how this film came to be made, it goes back to 90s California with Rex Pickett, who started writing novels in 1995. His first book was this mystery called La Purissima, which sadly didn't sell. He would then write a novel called Sideways, which he completed in 99. It was submitted to publishers and production companies, and after a slew of rejections, it was pulled. So the novel of Sideways would basically remain unpublished until the film rights were purchased, with the novel being released a month before the film actually had its premiere.
No way.
Yeah.
How did they get it?
I'll tell you. A year after being pulled.
Thank you for asking.
Great setup. So a year after being pulled by the publishers, the novel would make its way to white people director Constantine Alexander Payne.
His first name is not Constantine.
Tis. That it be. So he was fresh off the success of his satirical film Election. So Payne,
Which I really want to see, but still
I haven't seen
got
either.
around to.
Yeah. So Payne, he was flying back from a film festival in Edinburgh, where he would end up reading
Edinburgh,
where he would end up reading Rex Pickett's novel. And then once he landed, he got the payphone, told his agent, "You buy this shit now." And Payne would later tell Pickett he loved the novel so much because the characters were, and I quote, "so fucking pathetic." So before Sideways came
They're so perfect.
So before Sideways came into development, Payne, he would work as an uncredited writer on Meet the Parents.
No way.
And he would be credited for co-writing Jurassic Park 3.
What?
Very good.
Amazing.
I hope he's behind my favorite bit in the film.
Where the Velociraptor goes,
Alan. The only bit I remember, which has been parodied endlessly since.
Cooper's a professional, he can handle himself. And he just get marked by the dinosaurs. Love that. And yet he did that along with his frequent writing collaborator, James Taylor, not Fire and Rain, not Sweet Baby James, this other guy. And
what is the song? He's got such a famous song.
Oh, I see fire, I see rain.
That is not the one I was thinking of.
James Taylor, Gone to Carolina in my mind.
Yeah.
There's
another, there's another one
There's
that's
a
like,
big one.
It doesn't matter. It's not important.
And actually, yeah, so after, before he did Sideways, Payne's next film that he would direct was About Schmidt, starring Jack
it's
Nicholson and
amazing.
Kathy Bates.
So funny.
Brilliant film. So,
The bit there's a is that the hot tub bit?
oh yeah. Are you just checking James Taylor, Rory? Give me other songs.
Fire and Rain and You've Got a Friend.
You've got
a friend. No, that's
That's Randy Newman. God bend in me.
What the fuck? There's like a really famous James Taylor song that I'm.
there is one I'm
missing
missing here. Yeah, because Fire
It's
and
like,
Rain.
it's like the only one that stood the test of time.
Something in the way she moves.
No, we must move on here.
Yeah.
Fuck
Fuck
James
this.
Taylor.
Fuck James.
So-
Fuck James Taylor.
Straight up, fuck that guy. So yeah, Payne and Taylor, they would end up adapting Sideways, with Payne selecting the wine list himself, being a bit of a wine guy
Oh
himself.
god,
So,
I bet he is.
Oh yeah, imagine that. Constantine Payne. Yeah. So Payne, he's also cited a film called Il Sorpasso from 1962 as being a big influence on the film Sideways and how it was shot. So Il Sorpasso, it's an Italian film that follows this impulsive braggart who takes a shy law student on a 2-day road trip from Rome to Tuscany. I really want to watch it. I haven't actually seen it yet. It sounds great. But Payne noted how in Il Sorpasso, Sopraso, every sort of shot in the film would have like a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's a film that, according to Payne, showcases the humanity of Italy, and you really get to see what the place was like in 1962. So that's one I really do want to see, actually. I hadn't actually heard of it before that.
Italy's awesome.
I love it.
Very, very
I
nice.
fucking love it.
Fascist.
Anyway.
Well, yeah.
I love fascist stuff. So, in the early stage of casting for the lead roles, there were
Suspiciously clean. Sorry, go on.
There were various big names being thrown about. So at one stage you had Robert Downey Jr. and Matt Dillon being considered for Miles and Jack.
Oh, good lord.
Then you
no.
had Brad Pitt and Aaron Eckhart.
No.
Who's, fucking Two-Face.
No. That would be awful. They're way too similar.
Even Cloontang George Clooney lobbied hard for the role of Jack, but obviously Cloontang was way too big of a star, along with the other actors mentioned there. You know? And this is where Thomas Hayden Church comes in. At this stage of his own career, he's pretty much stopped film acting. So as an actor, he is focusing on voiceover work.
No way.
Yeah. So
Holy
Church,
shit.
he'd actually previously auditioned and been a finalist for a role in About Schmidt. I'm not sure which one it was, but he just missed out. But Payne kept him in mind. He was like, he is good. And he asked him to audition for the role of Jack. Now, when Church auditioned, he actually stripped down to the nude, because that's what was happening in the scene. So he did that, and he was the only actor to do that in the audition. So they were like,
So he
fair
was
play.
desperate at that point, is
Fair
what you're
play.
saying?
Yeah.
He is fantastic. He's like perfect
I love
casting
him
in it.
in that film. He's phenomenal.
Both of them are perfect casting.
But so Church's, his life and career, it perfectly reflects that of the character Jack. It almost feels like the character is based on him. So Thomas Hayden Church,
I would say both of them,
big
both
time.
of them, like live in the roles so perfectly.
So Thomas Hayden Church, he was a regular in that 90s sitcom Wings, that airport I've never seen it, but I know of it.
Yeah.
He played this slow-witted aircraft mechanic, and he would also play the lead in a sitcom called Ned and Stacey between 95 and 97. And then in 97, he would play the role of Lyle Vandergroot, the primary antagonist of George of the Jungle. And that's where I knew him from without realizing it, because I always watched that film as a kid.
I really recognized him, but I had no idea where. I did look through his filmography.
My
but I
wife Megan
wasn't
called it
100%
straight away.
I
So
can't believe she got that
literally-
straight off the bat.
As soon as he came on screen, she's like, "He's in George of the Jungle." And I was like,
mad.
and I was like, "What?" Because
That's incredible memory.
That's
I
amazing.
don't remember that film at all.
And he wasn't even the main focus at the time. It was when Paul Giamatti was having a conversation with the father-in-law.
Yeah.
He was just in the background.
Oh, the father-in-law is so hilarious. I actually kind of sympathize with the father-in-law, because he's like, they're talking about novel, they're talking about his novel.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Is it fiction or non-fiction?
the father-in-law is like, what is he, like Armenian or
Armenian,
something?
yeah.
He's like, I do not read any fiction. Like, I don't know why I'm giving him a Borat accent. You know what I mean?
I do not read fiction.
The point he's making is that, like, there's so much to know about in non-fiction that fiction's a waste of time. And I've literally had that thought before, because there is so much to know. And I'm like, my God, I'm wasting so much time reading this fiction novel.
It's such a mug off to Miles.
Yeah. It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. See, after George of the Jungle, the great film that it is, his career would fade into obscurity. And as we mentioned, he was focusing on voiceover work, which reflects Jack, this washed-up actor, used to be a soap opera star and is now only recognized by sort of older or lonely women. Then we have Paul
Like
Edward.
Miles's mother.
Yeah, now we've got Paul Edward Valentine Giamatti.
No
There's
way.
there's a name.
That's amazing.
He would claim to be shocked that he was cast in a lead role. He actually thought it was a practical joke initially. Paul would have to basically fake all the wine knowledge in the film, because he basically knew nothing about wine at all, and he didn't understand why anyone would actually care so much about wine.
He fakes it really well, though.
God,
I was like, I bet you he knows.
Amazing.
And he
Yeah,
knows.
I've had exactly the same thought. Where I thought, this is so natural to him.
Well, I will tell you something. I've come never to expect greatness from a Cab Franc, and this one is no different. It's kind of a hollow, flabby, overripe.
I don't know. Tastes pretty good to me.
I've recently seen Paul Giamatti in Downton Abbey. So
Yeah, you were saying.
he's in
I had no idea he was in it.
He's in the last series.
What the hell?
He's playing like in a. This has been Downton Abbey's obviously had massive success by now, and they know this is the last series. So I think there's people that are in
Does he
it
play
just
a
be in
really
it.
fancy guy?
A really fancy American rich guy who's over in England almost trying to find a wife.
Right.
And
That's like sealed the deal for me. I will watch that show.
oh, it's so good, man.
Why the hell would you go to England to find a wife? That's what I want to know.
You want to find somebody of good lineage.
Yeah, good stock.
You have to say, see from watching Downton, there's a couple of American characters and they're not very likable people. No harm to America, just
Right, sorry.
I will never watch Downton Abbey.
You should.
See, I just don't have the time. Like, I've seen season 1. I've rewatched season 1 of Twin Peaks recently, which was incredible.
Nice.
And I'm like dying to find some time to rewatch the rest of it, but there's just too much.
Right.
Anyway,
So Paul Giamatti, he did a lot of like theater work on Broadway in the 90s, and he would appear in various supporting roles in films such as Saving Private Ryan, Man on the Moon,
what? I do not remember.
Yeah,
Saving
yeah.
Private Ryan. What the fuck?
Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, Big Mama's House, and Big Fat Liar. Speaking of Planet of the Apes, Pepsi did a tie-in with Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes in Japan. Somehow they managed to get Paul Giamatti to do an ad as his ape character in the film, which I'm going to show to you now.
They probably paid him a shitload of money.
Oh, yeah.
Humans. Ha! You don't know your right from your left. An inferior species of primates. Or you don't even know it tastes good. Planet of the Apes.
I'll say this, at that time of filmmaking, marketing was fucking sensational. Anyway, Paul Giamatti, he received acclaim for his lead role in the film American Splendor, in which he portrayed comic book writer Harvey Pekar in 2003. But it was his work in Sideways which really garnered mainstream recognition and fame. Speaking of Big Fat Liar, Paul would appear in that film with Sandra Oh, who would be cast as Stephanie,
Sandra Oh's in everything.
while she was also married to Alexander Payne.
No way.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
So Sandra, she was best known at the time for her role in this HBO comedy called Arliss, which ran from 96 to 02. And she would also learn to ride a motorbike for her role in Sideways.
And Grey's Anatomy. She's big in Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, but that was probably after.
I don't
She's
know what
in
Grey's Anatomy is, but
loads of
she was
stuff.
massive in
And then
Grey's
she
Anatomy.
killed your woman Eve, did she? Or she
That's
Eve?
more recently. Yeah,
Did she kill Eve, or was she being
she
killed by
is.
Eve?
She is Eve,
She is Eve.
and then that mad sort of Russian girl is the other one.
Nice. Now,
But she's not Russian. I think she might be.
then
English.
you've also got Virginia Gale Madsen, whose breakout role came in David Lynch's Dune, in which
Yeah,
she played
yeah.
Princess Irulan.
Princess Irulan.
I knew I'd say it wrong.
It'll be Florence Pugh's character in the more recent one.
Florence Pugh. She would be cast as the wine-loving waitress Maya. So the film takes place in Santa
Like
Barbara.
miles out of Giamatti's league.
Yeah. So the film takes place in Santa Barbara County in California, which is about 50 miles north of Los Angeles County. Rory, what's the crack with Los Angeles wine country?
Without going into too much detail, wine, going back in history, wine was massively associated with the church, obviously. We all think about Buckfast, the monks are still brewing it, you know.
Love it.
We all think about it.
And it was the same back then. And basically, wine carried on that way over there for a very long time, about 300 years or so, from the late 17th century right up until Prohibition.
So is this because of obviously like the blood of Christ, like the wine,
Yeah,
like as part of the sacrament?
Absolutely.
So that's why they were producing their own wine.
Yeah, but it gains it's more widely drank than that, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
that's how it always starts, you know.
Right. That's how they get you. The
Exactly.
first one's free. One day you're taking the sacrament. The next day you're like crawling on your hands and knees out of the pub after 20 pints.
And you're on your knees in the sacrament.
And then Prohibition.
Receiving extreme unction.
And then Prohibition happened, and the wine industry in California was destroyed. Obviously, only a little bit was still being made for stuff like the sacrament. That was the only sort of way you were able to get away with it. But there's a lot of bootlegging of wine went on, but their wine industry declined by 90% during that period, and that's what 1925 to 1933.
That's such a hilarious moment in American history. Like,
mad.
yeah, I mean, we need to remember, like, we always forget, and like, we always need to remember that America was founded by like religious fanatics that were expelled from the United Kingdom.
So 1933, production of wines allowed again. but it takes sort of 40 years or so for wine to increase to the popularity when you sort of see in sideways. So 1976 is a really important date in Californian wine because wine in America was never as respected as wine in Europe, and your Burgundies and your Bordeaux's were still the go-to, the high price stuff.
Yeah.
Then in 1976 they had the Tasting of Paris, which was a big wine festival in which Californian wines were put up against French wines. And in that first year of the top 4 wines, 3 of them through blind tasting were Californian wines. And so that was the moment where people sort of thought, right, wine in this region is actually very good.
Yeah.
But then it still carried that stigma of, it's not going to age like French wine. So 10 years later, on the anniversary of the Tasting of Paris, they had another one in which exactly the same wines that were drank 10 years ago.
But aged.
They tasted them again. And like the top 6 spots that year were occupied by Californian wines.
No way.
And then
That's class.
20 years after that again, so we're talking, early 2000s, they had a 30th anniversary of it in which, once again, Californian wines just cleaned up. And this was done not just in California, this one was done in London as well. And the same results were sort of carried through by both. And from then...
It must be like this. It's either one, they're like buying the whole thing and like rigging it, which is like an entire, like that is a possibility.
It is.
It's not, I'm not saying it's a probability, but it's a possibility. Or it's like the perfect climate for wine, which you can kind
That
of...
is the other thing.
I think that's what it comes. I think that's what it came down to. There's only a few regions in the world that get hit with that crazy amount of sun all year round that California does.
But
to go off on a bit of
Spain
a
does as well.
to go off
It
on a
must be a slightly different climate.
to go off on a bit of a transgression, I suppose. When you look at weed. Weed is the same thing going on. There's an area in California there they call the Emerald Triangle that you can grow weed outdoor there better than anywhere else in the world.
Really?
And that's like universally recognized. So
Holy
it is
shit.
like that's why.
I bet you there's other places in the world where you could, but it's like illegal or something.
Yeah,
You know what
absolutely.
I mean?
But I was finding about the Emerald Triangle. It was still very illegal there for a long time,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah,
where the best was coming from, you know. So, but it must be a similar thing with the wine where it's that climate, and even Paul Giamatti talks about it in the film about how the Pinot Noir grape needs that specific climate that's being offered in California there that keeps the skin of the grape thin.
Yeah,
And,
it's the warm days and the cool nights.
yeah, and the sea and
and the sun all year round. Yeah,
the ocean providing that cool breeze
Yeah.
that comes through at night time and keeps
it's
everything
like
sweet.
microclimates it has
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So
Either
you can
way,
produce
it's
a big variety.
But either
as well
way,
at the
when it
same
comes
time.
down to it, it is a really good area for growing wine, and it took a long time for the world to sort of accept that. But those 3 wine tasting festivals sort of cemented it as being as good, if not better, than France.
That's so funny.
Speaking of wine,
And I'm sure a similar thing's true of Australia and South Africa, these other massively big wine producing
like
regions.
Chile and Argentina and stuff.
If you took California by itself as its own country, it would be one of the top 4 producers of wine in the world, like by volume.
It would be like one of the biggest economies in the world just
Yeah.
by itself as well.
speaking of wine, we're having our first tasting.
So what is the wine that we're tasting?
This is the Bread and Butter Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon 2021 Napa Valley. Pour it out.
Plenty.
Pour it out. Oh, good. Actually, I'll probably give you too much if you're driving.
Plenty.
Well, if it's really nice, I'll
So we're
finish
going to
yours.
follow Paul Giamatti's, the way he talks us through a wine tasting. So first we're going to do is hold up the glass and examine it in the light. And we're looking to see, is it thick? Is it thin? Is it syrupy? It's quite thin for me in the edge. When you
It's
look
relatively
it up
thin, but
there.
it also looks a wee bit syrupy to me.
Yes.
We're comparing this against nothing at the moment. This is the first of these wines we've drank. So
I'm just going by look here. Yeah.
But you've got the drips down the side of the glass.
get the legs.
Yeah.
Then you want
What year is the wine?
2021.
Oh,
That's it. You want to check for color densities toward the rim.
color and clarity.
Just tells you how old it is.
Wait,
Color
explain that to
densities
me.
toward the rim. I'm trying to explain it to myself by looking at it.
You need Paul Giamatti.
So it's not
here.
like there's not a big, section where it's like changing. It's quite
Yeah.
compact because it's
Yeah.
not like really old. You know what I mean? I think that's maybe what it is.
Yeah,
Potentially.
I'm not sure about this. It's not particularly old.
Next,
stick your nose.
get
in
your
it.
nose right in there. Right, so
I don't know if it smells like Cabernet.
what do you smell? What are you getting off that? Obviously, some sort of the dark berries is a big one there.
I'm getting a lot
Strawberries.
getting a lot of wine.
Blackberry?
I'm really not sure. I have a really underdeveloped.
It's the first thing that comes to your head.
Yeah, I have a really underdeveloped palate.
I've got a very underdeveloped sense of smell. I can't smell.
Well, since I stopped
So do
smoking,
I.
mine's way better, definitely.
Do you remember them stink bombs in school, the wee glass ones, in the wee glass vial?
Yeah.
I literally, if you pop one of them in here, I can't smell.
No
It just
way.
it just doesn't register in
Right,
my.
next, get the glass down, oxygenate it, open it up.
Is this good? Maybe this will release the
This
aromas
will
for me.
unlock the flavors. All right, so now we're gonna smell it again. Whoa!
Oh, yeah. It's like flowery almost to me.
Yeah, like a bouquet. Yeah.
It has a soupçon of rose.
And now we drink.
It's definitely just my naive nose, but all I can smell is wine from it. And I know that's not great, but
It's really nice though.
I give you too much. I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to get you drunk.
That is a very nice bottle of Cabernet.
It is
You're
tasty.
not drinking.
it is tasty.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously red wine, dark berries. You know, I'm trying. There's something else there.
Grapes.
Oak, oaky.
I'm not going to give you answers you want, man. I just don't know.
Let's look at the consult the bottle. We're not good
Sandalwood.
at this, are we? Hints of black cherry, plum, and baking spice.
I can tell you what black cherry smells like compared to normal cherry, you know. That's very specific.
I know. Anyway,
Tobacco. No, I say tobacco. And these fans don't like tobacco and woods and
Southern tobacco. So anyway, when they were filming the scenes, they mainly used non-alcoholic wine or grape juice, particularly in the wine tasting scenes, because obviously multiple takes, you could end up a bit too pissed.
and then Paul Giamatti pours that bucket over himself. And,
Yeah, I'll touch on that actually later. But the cast, they would end up drinking so much of like the fake wine that they would feel sick. And they would actually have to switch to the real thing now and then just to fucking cleanse the palate a bit, you know.
that's hilarious.
A funny wee note was Thomas Hayden Church. He was a wee bit uncomfortable and anxious about filming some of his love scenes with Sandra Oh, considering she was married to
The director.
her director at that time.
I did that one where the
Where
scene-
Miles walks in.
Yeah.
That scene where he's like pile driving her
Yeah.
whenever Miles wanders in is like seared in my memory now.
It's like you walked in on.
yeah.
That scene, they actually had done like some different takes in which they played it out in different ways, you know, like make it funny or like make it, you know, more passionate with each take. You know, like Payne was encouraging them to like be more passionate every take. And funny enough, Payne and O would divorce 2 years later. So, there were a few scenes from the novel that didn't make it into the film. There was a boar hunt, a trip to Hearst Castle, and some like hot tub scene as well. There was another scene that didn't make the final cut. It was in which Miles hits a dog with his car. Supposedly, it was a bit of a slapstick kind of scene, but they removed.
I would love to see this like full version.
They removed it because it didn't match with the mood of the film, but apparently Paul Giamatti's facial expressions in the scene made it fucking hysterical. You can imagine, you know. And
I would love to see that.
Yeah. And then a big one just to touch on is definitely like the cinematography and the editing of the film. Like it's so good in how it creates and conveys the atmosphere of like being drunk and being hungover as well. It makes us really feel like we are a part of the film.
The hungover, you're very right. You see when he's crawling back into bed, the way he's carrying himself, I just think, I know that so well.
But it's mainly the use of lighting. Like you'll notice that whole opening sequence of Miles waking up, you know, he's obviously hungover. It's the first part of the film. It's someone knocking his door. He wakes up and the light is so bright. It's like a really high exposure. And then when he's in like Jack's in-laws house, the light coming into the windows is so overwhelming. You can't even see outside. You know, it's got like a blurry quality to it as well. And it perfectly reflects a wine hangover, which can be fucking brutal.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been there. And you'll notice in the film when they're inside Santa Barbara, the more they drink, you know, like you see car headlights get more blurry, and even like the signs of the motels and the restaurants, you can't even read them properly. And the camera gets a wee bit like sort of shaky when they're moving. And there's also various little like montage sequences which feel a lot like, you know, like holiday snaps. You know, it's like little like photographic images moving around, so it feels very much like a trip, you know. So I was actually going to do the second tasting now.
Ooh. He's just seen off the rest of his first glass. You've structured this terribly. You should have had those earlier on.
Yeah, I know. Let's just have a wee quick palate cleanser. We can keep a bottle each, by the way. I'm obviously keeping the most expensive one. Just sort of, not even because I like it the most. Even if I like a different one more, I'm keeping the most expensive one.
I think just like the one you like, or keep the one you like.
I will only have a sip of the next one. So.
Yeah, sorry.
The bread's so good.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, shout out Bakery for the beautiful bread. Tom, can you tell us about it?
I wish I could remember. It's meat. At the moment we're having medium sourdough, so it's like 50-50.
What's the crack with Bakery? Icelandic?
It's an Icelandic bakery, but the bread isn't specifically Icelandic.
Well, yeah, so we're going to do our second tasting now, and I think what we're going to go for is it's technically the Merlot, but they call it Red Blend. I think I know why they've done this, because this film actually had a major impact on Merlot.
Really?
Major impact on Merlot.
That's
it
so
affected
funny.
sales big time. I think I've got...
I think
We splash more. Just yeah. I need enough to wet my mouth.
Just enough to wet the whistle.
I've got some stats for later on, but yeah, Merlot took a big...
That's so
hit.
funny. So we're referring to Paul Giamatti's character, who's the ultimate wine connoisseur, the most pretentious man in the world. He hates Merlot. Like he can't even abide the mention of the word, and it's never explained why. And I love that. I love how it's just like this completely like random hatred. Yeah. Is it because it's a blend or something?
I think so. Yeah.
It's like it's like you like
there's not
you're
enough.
Adulterating the wine.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, second tasting. So again, let's get up to the light. See what
There's a slight difference.
I think it's a lot. I don't know whether I poured less.
Looks not thinner.
A lot thinner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot thinner. I see wee bits in it as well.
Sediment.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's noticeable. Like, it's a difference.
And it's not got the same legs. You know,
Now we want to get a
you
wee
still
bit
see
of-
the Cabernet. You see the Cabernet above it. Whereas when I do
Actually, I forgot the smell before getting out, but fuck it.
Yours is more legs than mine does, though.
it's just to know that's the Cabernet above it that you still see.
Oh, right.
We haven't changed the glasses to.
Oh, I thought you'd swirled it really high.
I have done, but it was still. I'm pretty sure it's still a Cabernet.
Definitely a lighter fragrance. Fragrance. A wider fragrance off this one.
It smells good, though.
Vanilla?
Oh, yeah.
A bit of vanilla of that?
We'll be connoisseurs in no time.
Yeah. I could become a wine cunt, definitely.
Oh yeah, I can't afford to get into wine after getting into records.
Sorry,
I seriously
tell the
can't
listeners
afford.
about your recent purchase.
Are you
please.
talking about the MF Doom
What else
record?
would I be talking about?
So I had to get the original MF Doom food record. Because the very last song on the album, on the first pressing, had a sample from Sesame Street that he had to take out for whatever reason, like copyright reasons. The bastards, whoever owns Sesame Street, ruined the song.
The
I don't
guy
know.
that created the Muppets, surely.
Is it him?
And what do you call him? He's great.
Henson?
Yeah.
Is he Sesame Street?
Yeah, the Sesame Street's directly from
Right,
Muppets.
okay.
Anyway.
I think the Muppets is from Sesame. Sesame Street's first, I think.
Yeah, no, it is. So, but like, anyway, I can kind of understand why he wouldn't want his his children's program associated with a song that's effectively about jacking off to internet porn. But, the original song is so much better. So I thought, I've spoken to multiple like record shop men about this, and they're always like, trying to put the fear into you, like that it's going to cost you like hundreds and hundreds of pounds to get it. And then, like they're always looking it up and being like, oh, it's like 400 quid or something.
Yeah, it's like when a builder comes out to your house and like...
Yeah, exactly. So after this had happened multiple times, I decided I would go on Discogs, which is kind of like the record marketplace online to see for myself, and it was significantly cheaper than I'd been quoted by the previous people I'd spoken to. So I was able to get like a next to mint condition version of it for €200 from Denmark, and I regret nothing because it's an investment and it's only going to go up in value.
Nice one. So yeah, with Sideways, I first saw this film when I was studying moving image, and it was actually recommended to me by the sort of like the assistant. You call him Davey, and for me, this is one of the best human comedies you'll see, and it's already a classic of American cinema.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Like, it's so gut-wrenchingly bittersweet. It's genuinely laugh out loud funny in both the tragic and like the funny sense. You know what I mean? But it's also incredibly moving. It's a perfect comedy about male friendship and the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Like Miles, he's one of the most pathetic heroes of film. He's a failure all around. He's self-loathing. He steals money from his mum, but we still forgive him for his actions. And this is down to how Paul portrays the character.
It's because he's so desperate. Like,
Yeah. Like the film,
I feel bad for him.
Yeah, the film itself starts with a hangover, as we mentioned. Like, and we, as the viewer, we never got to attend the party. We're just there for the hangover.
Yeah, he's rushing out of his house in like his bathrobe or like his dressing gown.
It's really humiliating.
Yeah. And he's like apologizing to everyone.
Yeah.
And there's, I think his car is like really badly parked because he's obviously driven home drunk.
Saab.
Yeah.
And a Saab, like to buy a Saab, you have to be a bit of a weirdo anyway. Like
Absolutely not. I like a Saab.
my dad used to have a Saab, but it's like
You're just biased.
But you're making a decision not to buy a Mercedes. I want to be able to be a little bit different there. And you buy a Saab.
I totally understand what it is. In the past, a Mercedes or like whatever is slightly out of the price range, but you can get a good quality, like what is it, Scandinavian car or something?
Yeah, Swedish.
For like less money.
It's not,
but it's still kind of
Saab
cool.
in America is not that much less than a Merc, because they're all European imports. That it's still an expensive car, and you're making a decision to buy a Saab to be different.
Yeah, anyway.
But he's got an old one. Like it's perfect. No, but it's
like an
perfect because it's a step down from the Mercedes, but it's perfect for his character because an old Saab is all he can aspire to.
Yeah,
It's like the perfect car for him because it's like all he can afford.
It's like the car like an art teacher or a drama teacher would choose to get.
He's trying to project something, but he can't project too much.
It's
afford to or whatever.
It's a definite decision. Or else
you're right. Like he's running out in his dressing gown and all this. He has to move the car in front of all these like big men trying to work, you know. And then he's late for Jack. Obviously, you know, he's unreliable, and he's sort of telling him, you know, I'm on my way while he's taking a shite.
Yeah, he says like I'm literally going out the door now, and then the next scene it cuts to is him like on the toilet reading a book.
Yep. And then
taking his sweet time.
And then he calls into some cafe and he's like, I'm running late. Just give me a New York Times and a Spanish croissant.
Yeah,
he's such a douche.
He gets a triple espresso to go and a copy of the New York Times and a spinach croissant. It's so perfect. I feel like Alexander Payne intimately knows people just like him. You know, I think imagine
Alexander Payne is that guy potentially.
To a certain extent, I think like most upper middle class people are that guy to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But like especially in America and especially like among the kind of circles that like someone working in film or someone working in journalism or whatever might be moving in, I would say they would know lots of people like that.
And that whole like opening part with the credits and all, like Miles, he's driving along Sunset Boulevard, crossing the 405 freeway, which basically that's, if you're not like from there, that indicates that the house he's going to is basically located in posh LA, a very posh
LA. He's going
neighborhood.
from not as nice to more nice LA.
So basically in the house of Jack's fiance and her parents, it's actually located right opposite the home of O.J. Simpson, where he murdered his ex-wife and Ron Goldman allegedly.
Jesus Christ.
Can you just say that now because he's dead?
Allegedly.
Well, I mean,
the gloves didn't fit.
If the shoe fits.
That's isn't it Kate Kardashian's father who was one of the lawyers along with Alice?
Rob Kardashian.
David Schwimmer portrayed him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I watched
not Rob Kardashian, that might be her brother.
I remember when I first watched that, I was
you're
like,
right, you're right.
When I first watched that, I was like, is he playing Bruce Jenner? That's kind of weird.
American hero,
Why
Bruce
is he a
Taylor.
lawyer and a fucking Olympic athlete? You know, brilliant. And a strong woman at the same time.
I literally watched about 15 minutes of that show and was like, no, don't care.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
I can't remember how far I got into it.
But anyway,
Not all of it.
so he meets Jack. He's at his in-laws' place, and they ask
Hilarious McMansion as well, by the way.
They ask him to like try the cakes for the wedding, and then he obviously, we said earlier, his dad mugs him off when they mention, you know, the publishing and the whole fiction, non-fiction thing. And then when they finally get away, you know, they're sort of waiting by, and Jack's like, you know, like, what the fuck, man? I was dying in there.
Yeah.
And then Miles he says, like, oh, there was a tasting last night. You know, there's always a justification. You were hammered. You were hammered.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you tasted the shit out of every single one of them.
It just sounds, it all sounds so pretentious.
Yeah.
There was a tasting last night.
Everything.
Who says that?
Everything he does is so pretentious. It's hilarious.
Miles and Jack, like, they couldn't really be more of an odd couple.
Yeah, it's an amazing odd couple.
Like, Jack is this big, handsome, happy-go-lucky guy. You know,
that's really underlined. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's really underlined whenever they're like on the road and they stop at a diner and this like young girl comes over to serve them, and your man Jack is like, whoa, and Miles is like, she's a child. Like, come on, and he's like, she's probably not interested. You're like old enough to be her father, and he's like, speak for yourself, man. Women look at me all ages. You know, like
Jack's the lad's lad. Like,
yeah.
Like, they're even in the car, and he finds his bottle of champagne sitting at his feet, and Miles is like, do not open that, there's a 1992 Byron, you know. He pops it open, you know. He's like,
drinking it warm.
But that's it. Like, Jack, he's more like, you know, he's aged like a fine wine as opposed to Miles. And with the whole odd couple thing, it's almost like with the way Peep Show did it with, you know, Miles and Jack and Mark and Jeremy, you know, two halves of the same, what would you say, psyche. Split into two different people. The neurotic one and the happy-go-lucky one. You know,
there's a real affinity between Mark and Peep Show and Miles. And
big time.
Yeah, they have the same. They almost have the same cadence.
Despite your crass behavior, I'm glad we could spend some time together.
Not now, Jeremy.
Well, he says to him, don't ask those kind of questions up in wine country. They'll think you're a dumb shit. Such a dick.
That's what I was thinking about the Merlot thing. I was like, is it like, should it be obvious to me why he hates Merlot? Like, is that a stupid question to ask?
But yeah, obviously they stop off to see Miles' mother, whose birthday it is, and
who lives in a place called Oxnard, which amused me.
And it's here we learn about how Jack used to be a famous soap opera star, you know, playing this guy called Derek Summersby.
Yeah, he was like a TV doctor or something.
Yeah, something like that. And like Jack's mom, she actually refers to him by like his soap name, which is such a classic like mom thing to do, you know. But Miles, obviously, we mentioned earlier, his real intention is to steal money from his mom, and then that's where we actually learn about his divorce as well. And funny enough, in that scene where they're outside eating, they all got food poisoning while they were filming that for whatever reason. They don't really know what happened there, but yeah, they all dying after.
Her cooking must be terrible.
See, in the film, Jack is getting married, and Miles, his best man, is taking him away for a week in wine country, which was clearly just, it feels like it's just any excuse for Miles to glug wine by the gallon. Jack makes it clear that he wants to get his nut while he's on this trip. He's a coos hound. And
he's initially masking it, being like,
horrible phrase. It's a coos hound.
That's what they would call it in America.
Nobody should be called that ever.
But he's putting forward the idea that he wants Miles to get his end away.
Yeah, it's like his gift.
But the real end goal is that he wants to get laid.
And Miles is like squirming at the idea of it. Oh no, you know.
Yeah. And but my ex-wife, who he like drunk dials.
But so as it turns out, Miles, he knows a woman up in wine country, this waitress called Maya. And it's so classic of this, you know, tragic, failed kind of writer, you know, always yearning, but never acting on anything, you know. He's also unable to really act on the romantic aspect because, like, when it comes around to it, he's too pissed to basically do anything about it. You know, we've all been there.
I thought it was a combination of him being too pissed and also just being a coward about it. Because she's like, you know, putting forward the invitation, and then he's like cowering away from it, and then he like runs to the bathroom and then comes back, and then he's like over the top trying to make up for it by like just grabbing her and kissing her, and she's like, okay, I think it's time to go home.
Yeah. And then while they're up there, Miles and Jack, they meet Stephanie, who's played by Sandra Oh, and she's sort of pouring for them at one of the tastings, and she seems quite chill, quite loose,
Loose
quite laid
would be the
back.
word I'd say, yeah.
It turns out she knows Maya, Sure was it? What's the line where she was like, oh, I know I need to be spanked. Turns around with him, brilliant. And it turns out she knows. By the way, Sandra Oh, great in that film as well. I thought she was class in it. Really, really
All
good.
of the acting is fantastic.
Yeah, all of it's great.
Sandra Oh is brilliant.
She's class, yeah.
Sandra was always just playing the same person, though.
Yeah, well, she's good at it. She's good at being Sandra Oh. And it turns out she knows Maya, the girl that Miles knows, and they end up setting up like a double date. And it's on this double date that Miles, before he goes in with Jack, he makes his disdain for Merlot very it's like, what was it he says, Jack sort of pulls him to one side, and he's sort of telling him, like, don't you fuck this up.
Yeah.
It's like, and if they want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot. It's like, if anyone orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I'm not drinking any fucking Merlot. I love that line. One of my favorite lines in film, period. And the delivery. He spits as he says it.
He's fantastic.
You can feel the hatred in his voice. It's amazing.
Do not sabotage me. If you want to be a fucking lightweight, then that's your call, but do not sabotage me.
Oh, aye, Captain, you got it.
And if they want to drink Merlot, we're drinking Merlot.
No, if anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
Did you taste a massive difference between the Merlot and the Cabernet there? Because I thought they were relatively similar.
No, I did.
That was lighter. The Merlot was a lot lighter.
I can almost see why he hits it. Like, I thought it was really nice because it was like really easy drinking. Like it was like
very easy to drink.
Even easier drinking than the fancier one. But I can understand because it's like adulterated or like
I said earlier, like the sales for Merlot would suffer as a result of just that line in that film.
Yeah.
But
because obviously people are watching it being like, well, what's wrong with Merlot?
Yeah.
It's like subliminally implanting the idea that there's something wrong with it.
Especially if you're a
mind.
wine lover and you see this film comes out and you're like, oh, it's a film about wine lovers. Yeah. And you get on it straight away and you hear that and you're in the supermarket. You're not buying the Merlot.
No.
Yeah. Not even like, it wouldn't even be a conscious decision. You're just going to gravitate to something else.
But the irony is that, that prized bottle of wine that Miles sort of cherishes is the
1961
Chateau Cheval Blanc.
Cheval, not a horse.
No, it's not spelled that way. It's Coeval. I don't know, Chateau Cheval Blanc, maybe. It's actually a blend of Merlot and Cabernet Franc, which is another grape that he slanders in the film. So there's a bit of an irony there, with his character. He's sort of like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. That's a great wee scene where they go in.
So it's not the blend that bothers him. God knows what
that's
it
a
is
great
then.
wee scene, that dinner scene where they go in with Maya.
Yeah, Jack's flirtatious small talk at the start is awful. It's hilarious, but it's terrible.
It's a great little montage with the editing where you're sort of watching Miles just slowly like lose himself in the scene and it becomes more blurry, and as he's just guzzling wine.
Yeah. He's knocking it back.
Jack even like tells him like no, stops him at one point from pulling more, and he ends up
and then he goes in,
his fucking ex-wife and all,
Yeah. Which is like, from a certain perspective, I can totally understand that he's like still in love with his ex-wife.
Yeah.
But from another perspective, it's like, meeting, this might be like very superficial or whatever, but like meeting his ex-wife later on in the film, it's like, surely Maya is like way better for him and more attractive. It's a win-win. What are you doing? Like, suck it up.
Having a wee look here, the reason the Merlot is looked down upon in the film is because his wife used to like it, and that's what his whole version is. That's what I'm getting from Arkansas Online.
Reliable source. That would make sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
There's nothing, and this is from nakedwines.com, there's nothing inherently bad about Merlot. When it's mass produced, it can create a very forgettable wine, and few mass producers have done some work to ruin the reputation of an otherwise very notable grape.
I poured myself a big glass of water and forgot to drink it. I was pissed.
What was I about to say?
Can't remember anything.
Paul Giamatti, he's claimed that during this scene, they all did drink real wine, and basically that they were all like completely plastered after shooting that scene, and that most of the dialogue in that was just improvised. It was just like, right, set up the camera, you guys sit here at the table, get pissed and talk, and it feels very real, very genuine. I love at the end,
That's
like
genius.
when Sandra Oh sort of brings up like, why don't you guys come back to my place? And Jack's sort of like, yeah, wow. He does things like Austin Powers or something. It's so cringe, but it's such a great bit of acting. You know, I love it. Really, really good.
Yeah, his acting throughout that scene is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
And then as the film progresses, we witness more and more of Miles' depression, which he's sort of carried with him for years, which obviously isn't helped by his binge drinking wine. And like all four characters, they're brilliantly written. You know, they all serve their purpose and they're equally important to the drama. You know, no one sort of tails off in the film. And Miles and Jack, they are two incredibly flawed men. Jack really lives in the moment and thinks of the future, while Miles, he's stuck in this rut, clinging to the past and the trauma that sort of follows it. But they're both in denial. You know, Jack thinks getting married into a family of rich Armenians to get involved with their property business will keep the door open for getting back into film and TV acting, while Miles still seems to believe that somehow him and his ex-wife will end up back together.
And he'll become a successful author.
Yeah, and Jack, coos hound. He wants coos. While Miles, he just needs some sort of male bonding while he's stuck in this quagmire of loneliness and depression. So the trip ends up becoming more like Miles spending time with his true love, which is wine.
Yeah.
He thinks
And
he's a
also,
grape.
like,
He
what?
thinks-
He thinks he's a grape.
But I was just going to say, like, you get a real sense of that where, like, it devolves into them both doing what they wanted, what they really want to do at one point, where Jack's away off banging Sandra Oh, and then Miles is, like, unable to get it together, and, like, in the
Hitching post.
not even like after that, where he's like back in the motel and he's gone to like the convenience shop to buy like
mate.
barely legal
He buys really
porn mag.
So he buys what? Security envelopes? And then he buys security envelopes, jerky, Skittles, and the new barely legal. Not because he says it. No, the new one, please. Suggesting that he buys all of them.
Yeah, fuck me. Like,
I wonder what the security envelopes.
I think it's all just misdirection. Like, it's like that Mitchell and Webb sketch where the alcoholic comes up with the beer and like the other groceries and then has to put them all back.
Or very similar in The Simpsons when Homer's trying to buy illegal fireworks and he goes, I have a pack of panty liners and I have the condoms and a couple of those nudie mags and there's some illegal fireworks.
But yeah, Miles, he is the ultimate wine snob. He fastidiously sips a Cabernet and pronounces it quaffable, but far from transcendent. You know, to Jack's bemusement, you know, he's like just rolling another vintage around, and Miles sort of detecting hints of, you know, strawberry, asparagus, and
it's got the faintest soupçon of asparagus and just a little flutter of a nutty Edam cheese. And then Jack is like, strawberries. And then afterwards he's like, are you chewing gum?
That's great.
I love that. That's so good. But yeah, it seems as though Miles could simply just be an alcoholic, but he's dressing it up in such a way as to justify it. You know,
It's a connoisseur.
That's his whole life, though.
yeah, it's tragic because it is clearly a big passion of his, but it isn't doing him any favors. You know, like you look at the way, like there's a scene where like he's longingly holding like a bunch of grapes, you know, after he finds out about his wife getting remarried, you know, all kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's caressing the grapes.
Yeah. And also, like, can we just touch upon his unpublished novel? The
Oh
title,
my God.
The Day After Yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like, so today?
Yeah.
And you can see how it annoys him so much and he wants to be like, you don't fucking get it.
Yeah.
I think the whole The Day After Yesterday thing, it almost reflects alcoholism in some way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The morning after the night before.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, as you mentioned earlier, there's that wee scene where Miles finds out his novel has been passed on, and he ends up like showering himself in the spit bucket, and it's like the low, a new low, but it's like a baptism of blood.
Yeah,
all that red wine all over him. You know,
he gets into an argument with the guy who's pouring the tasting wine because he's like, pour me another one, and he's like, I'll pay for it, and the guy refuses to pour him another one because he's already drunk.
Speaking of tasting, we're moving on to the famous Pinot Noir.
Oh,
That's just the
Miles'
grape.
favorite grape.
Yeah, the grape that he loves and holds higher than
One that
anything
he
else.
cherishes. You said
Which,
when.
being honest, when it comes to wines that I've drank previously, Pinot Noir has not been my favorite, but we'll see.
it's one of those things like the real connoisseur is gonna like something that everyone else
Oh,
thinks
yeah.
is like.
For like a really weird reason.
Yeah.
If I'm buying wine, I'm buying like a French Cabernet near enough every time because I know I'm going to like it.
Oh, you've got to experiment
I
a
know,
little bit more than that.
but I'm not drinking wine very often these days.
hold her up.
Although I'm going to have a spaghetti bolognese tonight, and I'm going to very much enjoy a wee glass of wine for that.
I love
Well, I'm having
bolognese.
spaghetti, so I might actually have some wine with it as well.
So yeah, you could
now
s-
that I have it.
There's not too much density with this one either.
There's less of a difference. You know, in the previous two, remember what you were saying about the difference in color?
Yeah.
There's like very little, if any, difference in color when you hold it up to the light at the edge.
I think this looks very thin again.
It does look quite thin. Yeah. Maybe like in between the two.
Yeah.
What age are we at here? It's still 2021?
One was a different age. It was in the front there. 22, is that?
22, yeah. So brand new.
Right, get your nose in there. I'm getting something there.
Just trying to think of things that sound very winey. Pine nuts.
I was thinking some sort of nut, you know.
You have to be really specific with
got a-
everything as well. It can't just be
it's got a-
cherries. It can't just be nuts. It has
It's
to
got a
kind of-
soupçon of pistachio.
It's not just potatoes, but it's Cumber Earlies.
It smells incredible, whatever it is.
It's a lot more tang
Ooh,
to that than the previous two.
yeah. It might just be because I've had two glasses of
tangy.
wine, but
Very-
that one
no.
is very, very nice.
That's a lot more tangy. There's more of an immediate hit of that. I thought
Yeah.
those
more-
were a bit more mellow.
I say, with not being very experienced in this, it's more of there's more of an after to it than the other two are.
Yeah,
There's more
yeah.
there's more of like a spice
I actually
coming
forgot
through
to
at the
check
end.
what was like in the red
Like
blend.
it's like maybe like a cinnamon.
I've got
at
it.
the
No,
end.
I've got it. I took a big gulp the first time and then a smaller gulp, like a little sip the second time. The big gulp was smooth as hell, and the little sip was a little bit spicier.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why he likes it potentially is because he's knocking it back.
Yeah, so he
So
can
it tastes
actually
amazing
feel
when
it.
he's glugging it.
Yeah.
You know, it's really smooth when he's glugging it down in a way that other wines that might be really smooth when you're sipping them wouldn't be.
So this one's black cherry, vanilla, and toasted oak.
So a couple
We
of
forgot to
very
check.
similar flavors than
Well,
the
we
side of the
forgot
other
to
two
check
are.
the Merlot. Merlot was black currant, vanilla, and toasted oak.
Well, you
Big-
Very similar.
I say you both said
Big-
vanilla straight after
big
the.
difference.
Yeah.
Whereas I did not pick
So
up
yes,
on that.
so actually, let me
I just like
read.
vanilla.
So yeah, speaking of Pinot Noir, there's a scene where Miles delivers this really impassioned monologue about Pinot Noir. He sort of talks about how Pinot Noir, it's a hard grape to grow.
That's the one I was saying about that. He wants to be a grape.
He is.
He is a
boy.
grape.
They're brothers.
He is
man.
the grape man.
And she's the bottle when she's then talking about a wine, and she is very much talking about herself like she is the bottle.
So yeah, it's a hard grape to grow, thin skin, temperamental. It ripens early. It's not a survivor like the Cabernet. Pinot needs constant care and attention, and only the most patient and nurturing of growers can do it. Someone who takes the time to understand its potential and coax it into expression. Like he's talking about himself.
Yeah, very obviously
He's talking
too.
about himself.
He's not
Then
making any
Maya-
secret of the fact.
Maya got into wine through her ex-husband, and she discovered she had this sharp palate. The more she drank, the more she liked to think about the life of wine, how it's like a living thing, what was going on the year the grapes were growing, all the different people who tended and picked the grapes, how many are dead, how it evolves, and how wine is basically alive.
There's a hilarious bit in that scene where they're like freaking out about a wine passing its peak.
Yeah, that's the one Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, where he's like saving it for a special occasion. She's like, is it not going to pass its peak if you keep saving it?
Yeah, she says soon it'll start its like steady, inevitable decline.
Yeah.
Which reflects the character of Miles. So after the film was released, sales of Pinot Noir in the States would rise by more than 20% compared to the previous year. And the same would actually also happen in British off licenses. But Miles, he has so many opportunities he could pursue, especially with wine, but he won't follow through.
Yeah.
And like,
It's the same with everything with him, though.
Yeah.
Like that's the story of his life.
Like, it's such a depressing stag do. It never gets out of first gear. You know, the visit to Miles' mother, Jack abandoning Miles to be with Stephanie, Miles grading homework, you know, the fucking buying the barely legal, lying around in the motel watching golf.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I really
That's
hope
when
all
he's
the
at his-
listeners can hear the bread in your mouth as much as I can see it.
I'm trying to stay off.
Just chewing this big lump of bread at me.
His lowest ebb is when he's hungover watching the golf.
Yeah.
after he's had like a huge failure the night before.
And he's so shy at golf.
Like, they only really have one truly great day as a group, going about all the vineyards, which is a really nice little montage. And it's also that part where they go to the vineyard and there's like a novelist in the
Oh
vineyard
my God.
presenting his new book called The Grape and I.
That's
And he's just
incredible.
like, he almost looks like Santa Claus nearly. He's got the big
Yeah, I
white
thought he looked
tash.
like Colonel Sanders or something.
Yes, Colonel Sanders. And he also reminds me of Kenneth Branagh in Chamber of Secrets.
Yes.
What do you call it?
Lionheart, no. Gilderoy Lockhart.
Is that
Lockhart.
him? Yeah.
Here,
He's, he's presenting his books and things
A
like that.
quick
you know?
aside, I'd completely forgotten about this until I heard someone bring it up recently. But you know, like one of the only black characters, if the only black character in Harry Potter is a guy called, what is it, Kingsley Shacklebolt?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you really want to get started on J.K. Rowling?
no, but like,
The one Irish guy in the film fucking blows up.
Seamus Finnegan.
Like Seamus Finnegan.
And then the only Chinese
The
character is
first
called
spell
like
he
Ho
does in
Chi
the
Minh
film.
or something.
The first spell he does in the film, it explodes.
yeah, like,
Oh, what's the name? Cho Chang.
Cho Chang.
Cho Chang.
I know. But like watching, like you wouldn't pick up on these things as a child, but then watching it when you're older, or like thinking about it or reading it when you're older, you're like, fuck.
How crazy
me.
was it when you first watched? What is it? Is it Cho Chang first in the Goblet of Fire?
And she's Scottish, and she's like,
Yeah, you see her and you're like, oh, there's Cho Chang, and she's like, she sounds like Billy Connolly. She's like, oh, get right, honey. I know. I know.
But like that,
Cedric's asked me. You know.
but that's like completely normal. Like back in the day, we were so fucking ignorant
Oh,
and
I had many
insulated.
Scottish Asian people.
Yeah, exactly. Like you didn't realize that was a possibility. Like, so my cousin is 3 years older than me, and at that point there was like a handful of black people in Northern Ireland. There was very, very few, and a black girl was staying with my mum, and they were like round visiting my cousins, and my cousin, he was like a toddler, like like one or something, came down the stairs and saw the black girl in the house and was just like, oh my God. You know, like his eyes like popped out of his head because he'd never seen a black person before.
Unintentional link to the Harry Potter films, actually. The American director, Chris Columbus, not Cricky Columbus, Chris Columbus. He was best known for the first two Home Alone films and the first two Harry Potter films. He directed
Oh, I
those.
see.
He described Sideways as a 70s movie made in contemporary times.
That was a fabulous segue, by the way.
You can see how this is true with that sort of freewheeling style of the film. You know, it resembles other 70s films that like subverted character. You think about the 70s films that would expose the darkness that lurked under the most unsuspecting people in America. And it also subverts the whole road trip buddy comedy film, you know, the mundanity, the punishment, even the betrayal of women in the film.
But you could say that about like, you could say that Alexander Payne makes 70s movies for a modern audience and is fantastic for that reason.
Yeah. One big topic of the film, it's this journey we all take in life to find like some sort of meaning, you know, purpose and acceptance of self in our lives, and like having that courage to face the future and changes you'll meet in your life. And like Miles, he's in this constant struggle with his self-image and the reality of his own life. And that contrast with this deep knowledge and love of wine, with all his insecurities and all his failures, it makes wine or alcohol the escape for Miles. It's like a form of sanctuary, refuge, you know. It allows him to present himself as having an identity. I'm a wine connoisseur.
Yeah, I have
I'm
a
not an
personality, I
alcoholic.
promise.
Yeah, it's like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this trip for Miles, is this a chance for me to maybe find a new path in life, some sense of purpose beyond my failures, you know? Whereas Jack, he's grappling with the fear of the dark cloud of marriage, no offense, Rory, that looms over him. You know, he sees this as truly burying his youth and the carefree lifestyle he enjoyed enjoyed.
Yeah, so he's like desperately trying to cling on to that.
He's getting on like an irresponsible teenager
Yeah.
in the film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's struggling to hold on to the sense of freedom, doing whatever he can to just postpone things.
Yeah,
Once
and
the
that's
stag
why
is
it's a
over.
perfect midlife crisis movie because
Yeah.
both of them are acting like irresponsible teenagers at times, but like it's in that kind of refusal to grow up and refusing to wake up and smell the coffee. Like they're consciously stuffing it down and pretending that reality doesn't exist.
This fucking chick in the jacuzzi. Oh, dude. This place is wide open. I'm going fucking nuts up here, man.
Hey, what should I wear?
I don't know, something casual but nice. They think you're a writer.
So at the center of the narrative is the friendship between Miles and Jack. You know, they've got a lot of history together and they both really care about each other, but the journey they take, it sort of tests that bond that they have. And you could say that journey through wine country, it symbolizes the exploring the contours of their own friendship, you know, the range of emotions, situations, indulgence, and even the vulnerabilities and support for each other. You've all these moral dilemmas that could strain the friendship, but Miles, he sort of steps back, lets Jack indulge in these questionable activities. You would sort of be like, you know, should you be doing that? You know, should you be getting on like this?
It's such a classic. Like this is why it's so well made as a film, because in those situations, often people, they're not going to have the strength of character to stand up to their friend, and they're going to let them get away with things that they're going to later regret. And then it could go either way. Like in real life, you could have someone who's like really upright to a fault almost, and is like killing the fun on the trip,
killing the vibe.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. Got too much wine at this point.
Obviously, following his failed marriage, Miles, he's on this quest for, you know, meaning and connection following this major emotional loss in his life. And through Maya, he's able to rediscover, you know, maybe I could love someone again and move on from the past. But
eventually,
you know, it's been a major challenge for him so far. Whereas Jack, he seems to be looking for something that goes beyond the superficial. You know, as he spends more time with Stephanie, he's questioning his impending marriage, you know, feeling he may have found a true connection.
Yeah.
But of course, as we said, his actions are kind of misguided. You know, what he does to Stephanie is pretty shit all around. You know, he's telling her he loves her, even showing affection to her daughter, all the while lying to her, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's like sideways. It shows us that loss can emerge from love and vice versa. Love can emerge from loss as well. You know, it gives the film that real bittersweet depth that it has to, you know. And then finally, the whole winemaking aspect of Sideways, it's like a narrative device to resemble the journey of life. You know, that careful, the careful cultivation and patience and the influence and impact of time, how like the characteristics of wine reflect how it was created. You know, people being a product of their environment.
Be
nearly,
different
you know.
on any day.
Yeah. Like, and how much care and attention have they received in their life? And it's really showcased in that Pinot Noir grape scene. And
that's so insightful.
Yeah, but
it's like genuinely interesting.
Finally something. You know how it's like it's delicate, it needs constant care and attention in order to thrive. You know, Miles is the Pinot Noir grape trying to grow in the wrong conditions. You know what I mean? And that's the symbolism of winemaking. It makes you sort of question your own life, you know, the processes that shape our own lives. And it's all about embracing the complexities that are thrown at us as people. For me, Sideways, it's a film that's much like a fine wine. It's rich, it's got depth and flavour, and it gets better with age. I've seen it loads of times.
I've seen it a few times, and it
gets better for me, I think, every time.
I'm sure it's going to get better and better. This was actually the first time I'd ever seen it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because
Phenomenal.
it's the kind of film that I love.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, I think maybe just the description of it when I was younger, I don't know, just didn't speak to me. I thought I would hate it. And I'm almost kind of glad that I didn't see it until now.
Yeah.
Because I really appreciated it.
There are some films like that. You're
Yeah.
like, when you hear someone hasn't seen something that you love, you're almost like, how haven't you seen that? But I'm also jealous you get to watch that for the first time.
I was I was making that point to my granny the other day who has dementia. I was like, think of the positives. You're experiencing everything for the first time. It must be amazing.
And then just one final note. Is Alexander Payne the ultimate white people movie director?
Yeah.
Is there a more white people movie director? You know, about Schmidt, Sideways, The Descendants, Nebraska, The Holdovers.
Yeah.
You know,
He's incredible. He's
amazing. Like,
he's
don't get me wrong.
basically doing like taxonomies
He's
of
doing
different
what he
white
knows.
people.
He's doing what he knows.
But that's what great art is. You know?
I was trying to think of anyone else who would fall into that category. I thought maybe Wes Anderson.
There's so many. Nothing that Wes Anderson knows is like his films. Don't be ridiculous. But I was just gonna say there's a few things that I wanted to point out before we finish. Obviously, like about halfway through the film, it all just gets a bit too much for you, and you really start craving a glass of wine. Like it really highlights your like. If you've got a problem with alcohol, it really, like a suppressed issue with alcohol, like most people in the West, it really brings it to the fore. And it was funny because it wasn't me who suggested we open a bottle of wine. It was Denisa, who doesn't really drink at all. But she was like, this is really making me want a glass of wine. And I was like, now that you mention it, yes, absolutely. And then I love the bit where they're at the wine tasting. I forget which one it is, but the woman who's pouring them the wine turns her back for whatever reason, and they quickly neck their glasses and then refill them again. Right. The only other thing I was going to say was whenever he's like belly aching to Maya and everyone about the novel, he's like, how many authors do you know that have become famous after they've passed away or after they committed?
They mentioned
yeah. And they're like, what about the guy who wrote Confederacy of Dunces?
That's right.
Which is that's like a pod favorite book.
Big pod favorite book.
Yeah.
John Kennedy Toole.
Yeah. One of, if not the funniest book I've ever read.
It is the funny. I've never laughed out loud so much in the book, properly. I had to put it down to laugh.
Yeah.
Because I would lose my space.
It's so funny.
So the next time we do a pitches and adaptations, we'll do Confederacy of Dunces.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right, we all good?
Yeah.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. It's been a great episode, and we will see you next time. See you later.
Ta-ra.
Thanks, guys.
When they ask who's a fool in the corner crying, I say, hello.